All right, welcome to today's call. I hope you all had a little side note for showing up early on today's call. We have some interesting wins this week. I am a little bit, I got sick sometime last week, so bear with me. Yeah, I've been sick for a couple days now. My kids got me sick. You know how they do it. But my kids got me sick, and I've been talking all day. So if I need to drink water, I have it right here. So, welcome to today's call. I want to cover some wins. We've had a couple of internal wins this week. Chorus landed a $885,000 deal that we contracted. I don't know if he's here right now, but one of our students here who shows up to this call landed a big deal that we contracted. Essentially, he found a really good deal and had a really good layout, and we helped negotiate with him and the agent because it was listed on the MLS, and ended up turning into a deal we ended up negotiating through. Oh, he's under Mac. There you go. Course Mac ended up negotiating. We ended up negotiating through him a great deal, and it's a big win that we have now under contract. So sales team will have a packet going out hopefully here in the next couple of days, and they'll start selling deals on that lot. One thing I really want to show you on that deal is why we like it. This isn't, if you guys have any questions, please put in the chat. We're going to cover over some cool wins this week, but I wanted to show you guys why we like this deal and why we got it under contract. So this is the deal here. It was part of a larger tract, and I think it's the first time we ever did this, but we ended up buying the best part at the same price per acre. So whenever we're going after land, the bigger the parcel, the more price per acre you can get. There's price per acre arbitrage. So this is like additionally like a 400 acre tract that goes above here, and it kind of almost like it's probably like another 300 acres above this. Same little staple, just kind of cuts across the freeway. I think Course decided to kind of go after the bottom part because it's the best part. The top part is a little deeper than we want to be, and based off the driveway spacing, it would make it a little wonky lots, which we're kind of hitting wonky lots right here. This isn't the final subdivide. It's kind of like my first version 1 concept. I think we're going to have somebody do a better job, but this is kind of general idea. But this is 162 acres, and we're getting 1610s off the frontage, which is really, really great. Textbook deal, very, very simple. And it was just a great opportunity. Well, part of the negotiations was they wanted to close by the end of the year. So I think we set like a close date of December 15th or something like that. But it was a really, really great opportunity that we got for $5,500 an acre. So if you do the math, $5,500 an acre. We found comps supporting 12 to 15K an acre. So I think we're going to try and sell each track for 120,000 is I think target. So really, really good opportunity, long due diligence period, and there is plenty of spread, which is great opportunities here. I wanted to show another deal. We actually, another one of our guys, I don't know if he's here right now. Let me see here. One of our sales team, he actually lives in Belgium. Yeah, one of our sales team actually lives in Belgium. He sold one of our lots from Belgium. So a lot of wins this week. We have another deal from John Pham, and I don't know if he's here. He is here, that we're negotiating as well. It's a $3 million deal. So hopefully we'll contract that this week. We'll let you guys know next week, but we might have a couple contracts from the group here from participation. It's really amazing to see, and congrats everybody. One of the big things why I like highlighting the deals and why they're good and why they're not good, the different opportunities, is I want you guys to get better and see opportunity better. It takes a while to get the eye on deals and what they look like and how to structure them, and you got to look at good opportunities to kind of picture them. So the reason why we teach this stuff is you get a better understanding of how to structure your own deals. A lot of what we've done with very little capital. So we've extended all of our private capital as much as we can to try and lock up really great opportunities. That deal, the one I just showed you, is we're a little bit aggressive, but if it's a great opportunity, we don't want to negotiate as good of terms as possible by being aggressive on the front end. And that one we're putting down $50,000 hard, non-refundable money probably tomorrow for that transaction, just because we got really great terms and we really want to lock ourselves into that transaction aggressively. That's how you get great opportunities. Is if you're aggressive in your negotiations and with your EMD, you can usually get extended timelines and negotiate a really great deal. So that's kind of the terms on that one. But you get a lot of cool stuff. Just keep your eyes open. Of course, I don't know if you could speak and tell how you found that deal briefly.
Yeah, I mean, just searching the MLS, and I was looking at big land for sale on the MLS, and just came across Land Watch or something.
That's it. I know we're not trying to make it difficult, but that's easy as that. Yeah, it's really cool, man. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. The bigger opportunity, the more you can get creative with it. I think this one, he's 1031ing into another project, so he needs his cash. But generally, what I've noticed, anything like $500,000 and up, you can usually get some type of seller financing pretty easily. So don't leave your negotiations hat off when you're negotiating these price points. I think generally stuff under that 500,000, 250K, they're going to want it in cash because you can spend 250K pretty easily for most people. If I ask anybody in the room, if you had 250K next week, what would you buy? You probably think of a car, a house. You can probably think of a rental property. You can spend that 250,000 pretty quick. So I think that the price point of 250 to 500, it's really, really hard to get seller financing. But on the bigger stuff, very, very easy. We just bought a deal. Wow, that's another win we had. We closed on 67 acres last week. It was $100,000 down, seller financed with it was 537 purchase, and it's $100,000 down. So seller's carrying $437,000 on it. So, like I said, it's like a little around $500,000. We got seller finance with 20% down. So you can get really creative with opportunities with bigger transactions, and you can get long-term financing. So I want to talk about Fam's deal. Let me pull up his terms that we essentially have a verbal yes on. We have a verbal yes on this transaction. So we're sitting on a contract, I think hopefully tonight or tomorrow morning. Let me pull this up. It's a purchase price of 2.95, so it's almost $3 million. We're putting 10% down of 295. We have 12 months to close, which is amazing. 120-day option for $1,200, and then we're getting 7 years of financing for $4,000 a month, which is crazy. I told Kyle, who negotiated that transaction, that he's crazy because he negotiated better than I would have. So let me draw on my phone. I kind of show you my thought process so you can kind of see and why that's crazy. So one thing I generally do is I try and negotiate a fair monthly payment, and you really don't know what they're going to take till you kind of throw out an offer. So I want to show you the math on this, and it is way better than I would have done it, which is really cool. It was Inception for a second, absolutely. So I want to show you the math of what offer I would have made, and he got better terms than I did. So I'll put the terms here in the chat so you can kind of see what he did here. All right. So it's 295,000, and then we're putting 10% down, so we're getting $2.5 million of seller financing. So generally, what I'll do is I'll put 0% interest, and I'll do a 30-year term, and then I'll figure out what that monthly payment is. So it's $7,300 a month. $7,300 a month would probably be a little bit more than what I probably would have made an offer of $5,000 a month, because usually $5,000 a month that's a really good monthly term. But Kyle, in his wisdom, decided to offer $4,000, and they took it. So with bigger down payment, remember they're getting $295,000 down. That's a big chunk. When you can get down to that price point down, and if it's like $1.5 million deal, it might be 20% down. Think about that. So if you get to that $100,000 to $250,000 price point down, you can really get a lot of flexibility on your terms. I'm trying to share screen, but let me just tell you, essentially, since we have long-term seller financing on that deal at 0% at $4,000 a month, it's equivalent to getting a 663-month amortized loan at 0%, which is insane. But we got 7 years of financing. So low down payment, low cash flow, and then 7 years of financing. So I'm going to show you what the power of that is. I really want to show you these numbers because it's crazy. So essentially, with us getting 90% financing on this transaction, we now get to leverage essentially 90% of the property or more. I think there's still value even above that. So whenever you value add on top of your price, you have you get like a seller financing arbitrage, plus you add on top value. So now you have a crazy ROI, which is amazing because the more seller financing we get, the more leverage you get. So let's say we sell we're buying it for 2.9 and we're selling it for 2.9 hypothetically, which we're not, but I want you to understand. So hypothetically, we sell it for $3 million at 12%, which is the current terms we're doing. That will produce $30,000 a month in cash flow, and our debt service is only $4,000. So just off of that alone, buying for 2.5 or buying for $3 million at 0% and selling for $3 million is $30,000 a month. It's crazy. So this is a great deal that we're sending out a contract on immediately just because of debt arbitrage. Now, we're actually value adding this property as well. So we're thinking we can hit almost closer to $40,000 a month in cash flow on this one deal, that our debt service is $4,000 a month, which is insane. Literally insane. So it tells you the opportunity. So one of the big reasons why I like going after bigger land deals is I want you to understand that every time you get seller financing, especially with low interest rate or even 0%, we've got a couple 0% interest loans. It's equivalent to getting a bank loan for that amount. So imagine going to Wells Fargo and asking for a $2.6 million loan with no paperwork, essentially, because we're not doing a credit check. We're not doing work verification. We're not doing balance sheet. We're not doing all that stuff you have to do to get a loan. We're not doing any of that. And then all we're doing is we're buying it and then seller financing it. So now we bought creatively. Now we get to sell creatively to the end user through a wrap, and we get to value add and create more inventory and do all that jazz. And we can now get to arbitrage that financing we got on this property and now finance it to somebody else without having to bring cash to the table. It's a really, really great opportunity that you get to arbitrage debt. And once you understand the power of arbitraging debt, it is no longer a cash business. Like most people that do land, they buy for cash, sell for cash. Our main strategy is creative finance because we understand the value of creative finance and how it can create leverage forever. Like we're talking about what's the close when your balloon hits? That's a great question. Let me find out. So we have 7 years of financing, which is 84 months, 0% interest, $4,000 a month, 29500. We will owe, when the 7 years are up, we'll owe 2.319, so 2,319,000. Now, for perspective's sake, I want to show you what the value creation is. So hypothetically, we sell it for $3 million on notes at 12%, 360 months. Our same timeline at 84 months will put us at 2.8. So we'll owe 2.3 to the seller, and we'll have a debt obligation of 2.8 or larger. Plus, we made $26,000 a month for 84 months, which that is 2.18 million. 2.18 million of debt value created across 7 years. Plus, we'll have $500,000 in equity from their position to our position after only 7 years. It's insane. Let me go through questions. What's the close when your balloon hits? Do you balloon it off or sell it off the note? That's a great question. I'm going to go to the questions, but hypothetically, I want to extend it forever. And one thing I want you to understand is I don't mind balloons because a balloon is just an option to renegotiate. So if you get somebody in the position, most people don't want to finance for 30 years or 10 years or 15 years or 20 years because they're afraid you're going to default. So if imagine if I make 7 years of payments on time with no hassle, and I send them a Christmas gift every year. You think after year 7, I ask for an extension of the payments, they're not going to say yes? I don't know. It depends on their current position, but I'm going to ask, and I'll ask for free, and then if they say no, I'll ask and give them money and see if they extend it, because every year they extend it means the more leverage I get every year over year. So you get a lot more leverage over and over again. So think of a balloon as another negotiation point in that transaction. And as long as you're a good person in that transaction, they should extend, hypothetically. So I'm going to use every seller financing opportunity that we get, whether it's 12 months, 18 months, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. When it comes due, I'm going to renegotiate and try and extend. Because if I don't have to move the debt, still have that debt arbitrage where I can make 300 grand and they get 36 or whatever that number is. How does it cash flow monthly? Essentially, we would seller finance it. We bought creatively seller financed. We're going to cut that property up into 10-acre tracts, and then we'll seller finance it out the same way we bought it. But we'll offer it at a different price point because we're creating value through subdivision, and then we'll charge a higher interest rate because we're getting it for 0, and we'll offer it for 12. The down payments from the end buyers, good question. The down payments from the end buyers will go to us. We get all that cash. So we essentially have that. Once we cover that 295, anything over that is ours. And then we essentially have to cover that debt service of $4,000 a month, and then we're in the money. So there's a lot of money to be made on this transaction just by simply asking to get seller financing and us getting multiple years with a balloon and a low cash flow point. So we get a cash flow significantly for a very long time. Yep, good question. And I want to say we've gotten zero. And a lot of people, when I talk to people in the real estate space, they say getting 0% financing is insane, and you're lucky to get one once in a lifetime. And we've gotten a lot of them, like a lot of them. I've gotten probably 4 this year alone that I can think of offhand that are 0% financing. So, and these are 7 figures. We did one in January. We have 1.6 in debt at 0%. We just closed on one last week. It's 400 grand at 0%. It could even be like due diligence periods. We have a deal right now, $4.5 million. We have 2 years of due diligence, and it costs us 40 grand. That's pretty much seller financing. They're holding the property without putting us any other money into the transaction. We're using a PSA, which is a personal sale agreement, as some type of seller financing. Even Chorus's deal, 6 months of due diligence period. That's a form of seller financing. We have 6 months to come up with $800,000. So
Daniel, can you explain a little bit more like of a situation where a seller would be willing or is willing to give you a 2-year due diligence period?
That transaction is special. We did a transaction with them prior, so this is our second deal with them. And our first transaction was 9 months, and it was a lot easier. And he kind of coerced us to do this transaction with him. And we asked for 2 years, and he said, yeah. So every deal is completely different. And that one, we have a lot more rapport where they're okay with a 2-year due diligence period. In most cases, we might have to pay for that. So we negotiated a deal a few months ago that we have a year of due diligence for 12 grand. And then after that year, we can extend for 6 months for 200,000. We use big tranches of payments to extend further if needed, because the longer they carry or hold that property, the more leverage I can create. Because that deal, we're turning it into an entitlement deal. So the longer they carry it, the less I have to bring. I don't have to actually close on the property. Yeah, they're essentially waiting for us to buy it, 100%. What are you doing with your 2 years term for entitlements? Engineering and pushing it out for sales. That deal specifically is a commercial deal, which we have not done a commercial land deal successfully. This will be our first one. It's 15 acres in San Antonio in a great corner right across the street from a school. It's on 1604, if you're familiar with San Antonio at all. There's like 70,000 cars per day that drive by this thing. It's just a really great car count. So it's in a really great location, great car count. And we asked for 2 years because we didn't know how much we needed. And we're shopping out with buyers. So if you get a buyers, you'll tell them they can't. No, if I get a buyer to buy me out sooner, I will just double close. So right now we have a big commercial buyer interested in buying 9 acres. So we're entitling it as a commercial industrial, not commercial industrial park, but it's a retail center, hypothetically. So we're trying to get a large anchor, Tractor Supply, Walmart, HEB, Lowe's into as the anchor position. And then in the front, if you've shopped anywhere in America, you know there's restaurants, Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, Chipotle, McDonald's, Burger King, Whataburger, whatever. They're all in front of that because the main Lowe's, HEB, Tractor Supply is going to bring a lot of traffic. So depending on what the anchor is, the other buyers will come in. 99-year lease, no. Yes, we could lease it out, which that's another strategy with commercial land. Some of those anchors will try and buy it outright or they'll lease it. So generally, Lowe's is interested in this project specifically. They've already walked it 3 times, I believe, and most recently was like 2 weeks ago. They want to buy it cash. So this commercial deal, just because we asked for time, and this is a big thing I want you guys to understand, when you ask for time, you lock in your price for the future, essentially an option. Lowe's wants to buy 9 acres of the 15, supposedly for $9 million.
Let's say that again. That when you were kind of fast and I couldn't really make out what you were saying. You said when you're asking for time. What did you say? How did you say that?
When you get time and due diligence on a contract, you're paying future dollars for it, and future dollars are worth less than today's dollars, if that makes sense. If I can option out a $5 million project for 2 years and never buy it, and then you buy it at today's price and it goes up in value, there's a huge spike during COVID, which there was, you get all the upside and you can sell it for retail at current pricing and still make money. And all you had was an option or a long due diligence period or options to extend. Like you have all this advantages by asking for time. You get all the upside.
Just create money out of thin air.
Create money through time by your long due diligence periods. And that's through actively subdividing or actively entitling it or just actively not doing anything with it and just sitting on it. You can create value through nothing just by sitting on it. So instead of working and flipping that house to create value, you just sit on it with paperwork, and you create value that way. I'm going to tweet that after I get off this call. You can create value just by sitting on paperwork. It's a good tweet right there. Lowe's wants to buy essentially 9 acres for $9 million. Hypothetically, Angie, if they buy it next month, I'm going to close that whole transaction out. Seller gets $4.5 million. I make the difference, and I still have 6 acres free and clear that I can now sell to McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, and all that stuff. This is a deal I didn't want to do. I'm just kind of sorting through it right now. But the biggest advantage I had was time. And time is what's going to do the deal. It's not even about the price point anymore. It's about the time. So if you can buy any deal hypothetically with future dollars and all you ask for was time, you're in the money every time. And that's what I really want you to understand. People that want you to close quick, they're asking for today's dollars. If I can hypothetically, even with Chorus deal, if I can hypothetically purchase prices $900,000, if I can sell 7-8 lots, I can pay them with their own property, not bring anything to the table besides my earnest money. And that's the value you create. Why not do a ground lease? Ground leases are tricky, and I don't care either way. When you get into the commercial space, you have to look at your ground leases. These ground lease people, they play dirty. And I will talk about, I guess I'll talk about ground leases next week. I'll bring up an example, but they play dirty. And how they play dirty is they lock in great leasing terms now, but they lock it in for 15, 20 years. They might lower their rent increases 3%, 1% annually. So by the time they're into this transaction, 4 or 5 years, your property becomes less valuable because they have a long-term lease on it. So you can only sell that lease, which has value. Becomes less value the longer you hold it. So lease terms are crazy, and I'll probably cover that in detail a little bit more next week because ground leases are interesting. They're very unique. I was looking at a Lowe's deal a while back because Lowe's was interested in buying this project. So I was looking at other Lowe's, what Lowe's triple net leases are selling for on LoopNet, hypothetically. And this Lowe's deal, let me see if I can pull it up because I think I might have downloaded their packet. It was crazy. This Lowe's lease deal was crazy. They screwed over that whoever owned that property, they screwed them over. I'll have to find it. It was such a good thing. I'll talk about it a little bit more. Lowe's, what they did is they put small rent increases over time, so it devalues the lease. And then they asked for 5 year optional extensions with no rents increase, which that means essentially they're paying top dollar now, but hypothetically, and it was already a 20-year lease, so they essentially have it locked in for 40 years. And the agent was trying to portray it as, oh, it's a long-term tenant really showing in their value by locking in a 40-year lease. But it was terrible terms because essentially their rent never goes up. So whoever buys or holds that lease essentially is losing money buying it. It's insane. And it's just the way that the terms of the lease are written. And they locked in so much time. We talked about time. They locked in so much time that Lowe's would make a killing after like year 5. And they'd be in the money for the next 40 years on that one location. And whoever's holding the bag is holding the bag. And they're kind of screwed. So it's leases are dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Yeah, I have another story. No matter, these are like my Daniel-isms or my hive mind-isms, however you want to call them. So no matter what you invest in, I know a lot of people invest in other asset classes. A lot of people you follow invest in other asset classes. They're really investing in the land when you really think about it. It's all about location, location, location. I have an example for this. So one of the craziest markets I've seen is, when you think of like a downtown city, I always think of like Seattle. Seattle's gone through so many changes over the last 15 years. And I watched a video online, and it was just a regular ABC house that was in a regular subdivision. It was a little bit disheveled and unkept. Sold it for like 300 grand. Somebody remodeled it, put a new house, sold it for a couple of years later. It was like 2-3 years later, they sold it for like 700 after it was like a nice new modern build. 4 or 5 years pass, they tear it down again and they put a mansion. And they ended up selling that for like $2 million or something like that. It was literally insane. This one little old house, and it's time. So no matter where you're investing, as time changes, your zoning could change into high rises. So think of like a major city that has high rises. I heard of a story recently that triplex zoning, 5,000 square foot lot. To me, a 5,000 square foot lot, you really can't do nothing. But city changes the zoning where now you can build up. You now have air value. They're turning that triplex zoning into 22 units, which would be worth $10 million. And it's all about location. So as time changes and density and the city changes zonings and potential zonings on land, you get the ability to value add and create value just by it being in the right location. So the other story I have is a dude I follow on Twitter. He does a lot of gas stations. He had a really great corner gas station, and a lot of people avoid gas stations because it has potentially environmental issues, but he had the right location. So Chick-fil-A ended up reaching out to him, and they wanted his gas station, and they wanted to lease it. So Ray and Jose are talking about leases in the chat here. So they wanted to lease it. So they made him an offer, which was way more worth than he thought about it. But him being smart, ended up talking to a lease attorney in the commercial space, and they lowballed him. They essentially offered him 50 cents on the dollar in his lease. And if he would have took it, he would have made millions of dollars less. So I think in his lease terms, his lease value was like 3 million, and they're offering everywhere else. They should have got closer to $6 million in lease value. So they lowballed him, and if he would have took that first offer, he would have been screwed, and he would have lost money. So ground leases are dangerous, but it's always location, location, location. No matter what you invest in, if you have a great location, that trumps everything else. It doesn't matter what it is currently. It can always change. Gas station can turn into a Chick-fil-A. The triplex can turn into 22-unit multifamily. Like if you have the right location, you can create, and as time progresses, it gives the opportunity to create value if you're in the right location. So that's the biggest thing. Location, location, location is the number one in real estate. So talk to experts before executing. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of nuances with triple net leases. I will do a case study next week or in 2 weeks from now. I don't know. I'll do it in the future, but I'll find a good triple net lease that has bad terms, and I will show it to you. They're really crazy. I had the opportunity to mess with, and I know a lot about it because I've come across it a few times in the land space. Early on in my career, I came across a commercial property, and it was right where I was living at the time, and I was just learning about land. So I may not know, but I'm willing to learn type of mentality. So this deal, I lived in Georgia at the time. So Georgia has a Bojangles, which is a chicken place. And they're the first ones that came on this exit. What they did is since they're the first ones to come into this new area, they locked in a restriction on any property that seller owned that they could not sell chicken. Restaurants that sold chicken could not be on neighboring parcels around that chicken place because they're first there. And they negotiated that in their purchase or lease of that property. Literally insane. Whoever signed yes to that lease screwed themselves because that means Buffalo Wild Wings couldn't come in. I mean, they had to go around the corner to another lot, maybe not the best location. So there's different things with leases that you come across. It's extensions, options, it's deed restrictions that come with it. They throw in a lot of curveballs to the unbeknownst and unknowing in their leases. And once they're signed and in place, and that's law. That's law for that parcel and moving forward. It's a dangerous place to get in. Oh, I forgot to put in. We put 1% EMD, John Alexander. So we're putting down $29,500 EMD, but it's all refundable during our option period of $1,200. Good question. I forgot to put that in there. So I'll do my homework and I'll find a good lease project potential that shows what they could do on leases, and I will show it to you on one of these future calls. That way you guys can understand that a little bit better. But I'm telling you, land is an amazing space to be in, and once you understand the nuances, you know what to look out for, and you can see where people are trying to potentially screw you. Especially, it happens a lot in commercial. It happens a lot in commercial. I saw a story because commercial's valued by its NOI and income minus expenses. So I saw one where to get people on good lease terms, what they did is they'd give them like 6 to 12 months of no payments on a lease. But whenever the payments are due, they would upcharge them. So it wasn't necessarily free. It was just 12 months of ease while they first moved into that lease. But after that, it raised their rates over market value for the rest of their term. What that did was, by that little trick, no cash flow, they carried that expenses for whatever 6 to 12 months or 90 days, whatever they negotiated. Now their rent rate went up high because now they can exit that property at a higher valuation because they wrote in that little lease terms favorable to the owner, where they can get higher than rent pricing. That way, whenever they stabilize it and they're paying, they can sell at a higher valuation when they exit. Crazy little tricks in commercial and land and leases. It's a very unique space, and there's a lot of tricks to the trade that people have been using for years, and people that don't know, they don't know. They get caught. So they're trying to sell and they get devalued based off of their income. So it's a really unique space to learn about these things because you can use them to your advantage. We've made offers with leases in place. You can offer. So here's a little quick tip. Instead of asking for seller financing, like if a seller asks for seller financing, like, no, I don't want to seller finance. I don't want to seller finance. Ask for a lease with the option to buy. A lease with the option to buy is just seller financing with different terms, different wording, and you can credit all that to the purchase. So there's a lot of ways to word things that it makes it more favorable to you or to them based off of your wording of your lease and what's in your documents. This has been Leasing 101. Any questions?
That's Leasing 2000. That's not 101.
Oh,
I like it. Thank you.
Leasing 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, you got any wisdom on leases?
Yeah, you do. I mean, Daniel, I was reviewing an HEB lease one time, and it's exactly what you're saying Home Depot has. They go in there and they'll write in all these products that HEB sells, like donuts, for example. So they don't want a donut, company in the same area. So Chinese food, whatever that HEB is planning on selling there, they'll lock it up so that they're the only ones in that entire center that can sell that. So you're right. You have to look at those leases carefully. And yeah, you're right. The 12 months abatement, basically, that is very common. And you can negotiate actually up to 24 months. That's rare, but you know, if your lease is big enough and you're talking an attractive number, yeah, you can do it. You can pull those things off.
Sorry, I'm beating them.
You can also get them to throw in money. You can actually have them actually pay money for improvement. So if it's a lease that's already there, that's another thing that can be done. So, and that's very common. So like when I like whenever you lease a space, for example, and this goes back down to an individual lease, but it shows you, how they work, in these situations. Like when you move into a space, you usually have to do improvements. You've got to paint the place. You've got to put in carpet sometimes. You've got to put in, like if you're going to turn it into a restaurant, you've got to put in all that infrastructure. And anything that's permanent to the space itself, they get to keep. So like if you rented it for like 3 months and went bankrupt and left, they get the benefit of everything that you improved on that property. And so there's a certain amount of that they will pay for automatically, but you have to ask for it. If you don't ask for it, they're not going to volunteer it. So yeah, there's a lot to leasing. It's a whole nother world, and why it's good to have somebody that's done it before, been there to help walk you through that maze.
You just reminded me of something too. I heard another story where in the leases, these leases are expensive. They could be $5,000 to $20,000 a month. So the landlord is giving you a lot of leeway because it affects their valuation. So they'll ask for like personal guarantees and credit requirements and big down payments and 3 months up front. Like the leasing can get really stringent and the reason why I learned a lot about this is I had a buddy of mine, and this is another leasing strategy too. I had a buddy of mine. It's actually my brother-in-law of my sister. It's a family member's husband from on my wife's side. They essentially master leased the property on accident. Now, what a master lease is they essentially negotiated the rent for all of the units at a base rate, and they negotiate their terms. But they have the ability to essentially sublease it at whatever current rate values and all terms they want. They can kind of control the terms with the end usage. As long as they make that payment, let's say hypothetically they got 10,000 square feet and it's 20,000 a month, they owe that to the landlord or to the owner. But if they can charge 30 to 40,000 a month, they essentially keep the cash flow off a lease and they control the units. So he did one on accident with no like real estate experience. He kind of came across the owner that wanted to do a master lease with him, and he kind of walked into it blindly. And he said his master lease, and he negotiated it because he needed the space, but he was making more on the leasing of the property than he was in his business of leasing the space. So he just shut the business down and just got into leasing. And all he does is manage the master lease because he makes more money off the master lease than he does running the business. It's insane.
Yeah, master leases are they became less popular, in the growth area. When the market crashes, they become very, very plentiful out there. You'll see a lot of master leases start up now. So that's going into almost any kind of commercial building. And instead of trying to buy it, you go in at first with a master lease. Hopefully you negotiate an option, of course, and then do exactly what you just said. And it was so popular back in 2007, 8, and 9. There were I guess there was 3 or 4 gurus, big name gurus at the time too, selling the master lease courses to teach you how to do that. So you see how plentiful it actually is out there on those at the market bubbles.
Go ahead, Corey.
Now, you remember here in Houston, now that you're talking about master leases, and you sparked something in my brain. It was a guy that must have been what he was doing. Was it Boxer Properties? He had properties all over Houston, and he had his signs on all of them. And I don't know. I'm assuming that's what he was doing. He was more into like management or something. He wasn't. I don't think he was. And they were all commercial spaces around town. So that's what, when you were talking, made me think of. I didn't know if you were talking about, if he was one of those gurus you were talking about.
I didn't hear the name though.
I think it was Boxer Properties or something like that.
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't sound familiar, but there was a lot of them. I mean, they were plentiful.
Yeah,
and that tells you how many owners out there will actually be willing to do that. It's the same mindset. These owners don't want to do management, and they can't count on the management companies because the management companies, all they do is nickel and dime them to death. They don't do a good job, et cetera, et cetera. So they much rather have somebody vested. They're okay with you making the money. They're okay with you making the spread. And so they love a master lease. And with the pressure that's going to be coming, like I said, this is really big when the bubbles start to burst like they are. They don't want the headache of it. And so people who rent in those buildings, they start to go bankrupt. Right, and they start to lose their business. So these guys suddenly they're saying, "Well, my management company can't keep people in there, and I don't want the headache, and I would rather have one payment coming from me from one guy I master lease to, and let him deal with the headache."
Yep.
And that's why these things tend to become very popular right now. And they're not hard. They're not hard to do. You go to a lawyer and you ask for a master lease. They all know how to put the master lease together. It's a very common agreement, and any commercial real estate attorney will know how to put it together and help you put the deal together.
Wow. Hope you all learned about leases today. This has been a lease course today. And
big course today.
I'm gonna release this on the podcast as a leasing 101, brought to you by Hive. Nah, this is really good. This is really good information. And like all these things have it, once you understand it, you have tools in the tool belt. That's all it is. Tools in the tool belt. If they say no to this, let me ask for this. I think once you get enough experience, and I know John knows this, you can ask for the same thing 10 different ways.
Yeah.
You can ask for the same thing 10 different ways, and they all sound different, but they're all wins to you based off of you knowing what to do and what to say and what to offer and what makes sense. And
so much of this arbitrage. Yeah.
It's just arbitrage. That's it. Arbitrage. That's the name of the game. It's a way to create a lot of opportunity without actually buying, and it's just arbitrage. Arbitrage of debt, arbitrage of price, arbitrage of leases, arbitrage of anything you can. You don't have to. A lot of people think they need to own. If you can just arbitrage, you don't need to own anything, and that's the key. So Go out there, make some offers, make some crazy offers. Everybody here, we're going to Corpus Christi next Saturday. Come check us out. Can't make it, we'll do it again next year. I don't know where we're going to do it, but we'll do it again next year. If you can't make it this year. But we're excited to meet everybody here. Go to the hiveislive.com/event. Go get a ticket. I think we're expecting about 100 to 150 people there. Rockefeller said not to own, but control. That's it. That's it. If you control the financing, you control the lease, you never have to own anything. That is it. There you go. Edward put the thing in the chat. And for everybody here watching this recording, thanks for tuning in. I'll probably put this out a podcast episode. It was a really good episode. I think we covered a lot of good stuff, but if you see it
So
come
Daniel,
on.
I got a question if you don't want before we cut it here. Well, as far as I got an example, so let's say a person had it listed, I think it was like 90 something acres. It's a little bit further than 1 hour of, I think, Dallas Fort Worth. I offered him 900,000. I got him to, of course, I did traditional 30-year financing. He said he could do 12 years. Not the best looking parcel, kind of like a shitty looking like half U shape. But then he got 12 years, and I gave him 10,000 down. He said that wouldn't fly today, but maybe I could get up to like 10%. Then he was asking how's the monthly payment structure. I told him annually. He may do that to 10 grand a month, but I guess we'll see. No, not month, 10 grand a year. And then of course 10,000 down, but maybe he'll 30,000 down or something. But because the seller and the agent is one of the sellers pretty much. So him and his partner. So I guess different than agent to direct the seller.
So annual payments is a really good strategy that you could do. Even ugly stuff, you can make stuff on ugly. You can make money on ugly stuff, 100%. If you get the right terms, I tell people all the time, if it is an ugly deal, if you get good terms, you could probably still make it work. But yeah, annual payments are good. Okay. Monthly payments are fine. And just like we did Kyle's deal that he negotiated for John, 360 divided by whatever was the balloon amount, he cut that in half, and it was $4,000 a month. So technically, my offer would have been around 5 or 6, and you probably would have made a $7,000 offer. Literally, they're willing to take $4,000. So there's a lot of ways to make ugly deals attractive with good financing. So $10,000 down is killer. If you can get 10% down, it's probably still killer.
Yeah, Bill, if we can arbitrage it as debt, if we can arbitrage it as debt, wrap it, or even do a subdivide so where we can at least collect 2-3 down payments to cover our down payment and what we did, and then we can cover our debt service. I mean, we don't have to lowball them as far as if we can get our monthly down to $10,000 annual. I mean, that'd probably be pretty large cash flow, but we probably don't have to give them that low of amount. We could probably up that for sure.
I was gonna say anything seller financed over 36 months, you are doing really good. If you get in 5-year, 7-year, 12-year financing, you're gonna do just fine.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, because he wanted 7.5% interest, but he said that's the highest he'll go. And they said if the market drops, he'll go down with the market kind of thing. So I was like, okay, that's fairly reasonable. But
so whenever you're negotiating on interest rates, prime interest has actually dropped. I think Kyle told me it's like 6% now, 6.5%, and it was like 8 a few weeks ago. So you can use that as leverage to get a lower interest rate. If you're value adding, interest rate becomes less irrelevant. Not that it's irrelevant, but it becomes less irrelevant. Right. The more you value add. So that's where my creative offers they mold to whatever the seller wants. So let's say hypothetically he wants $200,000 for it. I might offer 10% down and $1,000 a month for 180 months. But he's like, no, I want interest. Okay, well, it's going to be 10% down, and I'll buy it for $150 with 5% interest. And it probably comes right around the same number. But to them, they're like, I'm getting interest on my money, but they don't actually look at the payments.
So I was helping Ruben with the lead. Ruben's in here too. I don't want to take up too much of anyone's time, but I did backloaded interest. So I did backloaded interest on the balloon price. So we offered them a 3-year balloon, and we did backloaded. I think it equaled out to like 75 grand in interest over 24 months. So we still gave them interest. We still gave them what we want, but that's another way you can structure it.
Yep. And like I said, there's a lot of ways to structure interest. I know, Bill, you asked me for that calculator that I made. I just learned of a new way to structure interest too. But if you guys get deals that want interest, just bring them to us. This is how you learn the game. You learn the game by bringing us opportunity, and we'll teach you of how to make interest offers. So I'm not going to say it on here, but there's adding interest to the purchase price. There's There's a couple different ways to do it if seller wants interest, but you don't learn that unless you bring a deal that wants interest. That's creative. So for everybody here, you learn by doing and actively doing. So if you want to learn the game, go find a deal. Go negotiate a deal. Make some crazy offers. Make some crazy terms. And if they come back with interest, let us know, and we'll come up with a counter that makes sense for us. If they don't want interest, you do equal payments. That's always our go-to. You're in the money in most cases. So it's all about your offer. It's less about the price. Oh, and for everybody here, I want to make a goal in here. There was 30 people in the room. I want everybody here to find a $500,000 deal. That's my caveat. A $500,000 deal or more. Everybody has the ability to do it. We've got a couple people in here that have done it and are currently doing it. But I want to encourage everybody here to find a $500,000 deal or larger and get some type of seller financing. You never know. But for everybody here, good luck. If we'll see you next week, I'm working a $2 million deal with Mike. Absolutely. This is the craziest stuff that happens. One of our students last year, he brought us a $2 million deal that we bought in January. He brought us a $500,000 deal we bought in last week in July. And then he's bringing us another deal. So one student's already going to get paid hopefully on 3 deals in the last 12 months. And it was off somebody working out of this room. So plenty of opportunity out there, plenty of land out there. And once you bring opportunity, we'll help you to negotiate better. And you learn by doing this over and over again. All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe, share with a friend. If you need help, let us know. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.